we are going to be working with finding the circumference and the area of circles. So the circumference is the distance around the circle, and then area is the amount of space that the circle takes up. So the area inside the circle in square units. So in order to find the circumference or area, you need to at least know the diameter or the radius of that circle. The diameter is the distance all the way across the circle through the center. So if this is my center point, then the diameter has to pass directly through the center and go all the way across. So that is the diameter, and the radius is half of that distance. So from the center out is your radius. So distance all the way across through the center is our diameter, and the distance halfway across, so from the center to the outside, is called the radius. So an example said to find the circumference of a circle with a 10-inch diameter. So that tells me my circle all the way across, so the total width of that circle is 10 inches. So to find circumference, we use the formula where C, which stands for circumference, is equal to pi times the diameter. So pi times diameter. And pi, when we work with pi, we usually estimate it as 3.14. But of course, pi is the number that never stops and doesn't repeat. So the decimal keeps going forever. So using our formula with a 10-inch diameter, we just plug in the information that we have. So our circumference is equal to pi times the diameter, and our diameter is 10 inches. So if I wanted to have the exact measurement, I would write that the circumference is equal to 10 pi inches. And that would be the exact measurement. But if it's wanting to know an approximate measurement, that's when we would use the 3.14. So 10 times 3.14 would be approximately 31.4 inches. Okay, it says find the circumference of a circle with a 3.5-inch radius. So we have a second formula that we can use when we know the radius, which is just 2 times the radius times pi. So since the radius is half the diameter, we just need to multiply the radius by 2 first. So if we know the radius, we know the diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. So 2 times 3.5 tells me that my diameter is 7 inches. So then I can just plug it back into my formula. So circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. So exact would be 7 pi inches. And the approximate would be approximately 21.98 inches. Okay, for area, so the area is just your square units inside the circle, and the formula for that tells us that our area is equal to pi times the radius squared. So pi times the radius times radius. So if we're only given a diameter, we know that the radius is equal to the diameter divided by 2. Or you could write that as 1/2 of the diameter. So if my diameter is 10 inches, then I know I can just divide that by 2. That tells me that my radius is 5 inches. So then I can just plug that into my formula. So pi times the radius squared. And I know I have to work my exponents first. So 5 squared, which is 5 times 5, is 25. And I still have to multiply that by pi. So if I wanted the exact area, I would leave it as 25 pi square inches. Or if I wanted to go ahead and multiply that out, it would give me an approximate area of 78.5 square inches. Find the area of a circle with a 3.5 inch radius. So again, area is pi times the radius squared. So 3.5 squared. So this time I don't need to figure out a radius or diameter because it gives me the radius. So I can just plug it in and go. So 3.5 squared is 12.25. So 12.25 pi square inches. Or I can multiply that out. And it'll give me 38.465. So I want to go ahead and approximate that to 2 decimal places since we multiplied 3.14 with 2 decimal places. So we would say approximately 38.47 square inches. So area is pi times the radius squared, and then circumference is pi times the diameter, or pi times the radius times 2. Okay, so just a couple more practice problems. So it says calculate the area of a circle with a 2.5 centimeter radius. So it says area. So that tells me I'm using the formula pi times the radius squared. And it gives me my radius, so I don't have any other calculations I need to do first. I can just plug that in. So pi times 2.5 squared. 2.5 squared would be 6.25. Square centimeters, or approximately 19.625, which would round to 19.63 square centimeters. Number 2 says calculate the circumference of a circle with a 5.5 foot radius. So circumference is pi times diameter. And it gives me the radius. So I know diameter is the radius times 2. So 2 times 5.5, which is 11. So that means our diameter is 11 feet. So 11 times pi feet. Or 34.54 feet. And again, on circumference, it's just distance, so I do not square my units. Calculate the circumference of a circle with a 13-inch diameter. So now it gives me the diameter, so I don't need to do anything special. So pi times 13. So I could write that as 13 pi inches. Or 13 times 3.14, which would tell me 40.82 inches. Number 4, calculate the area of a circle with a 9.2-inch diameter. So I know area is pi times the radius squared, but it gives me my measurement of a diameter. So I know radius is the diameter divided by 2. So 9.2 divided by 2 would be 4.6 inches. So pi times 4.6 squared. So we have 4.6 squared, which is 21.16. So I could write that as 21.16 pi square inches. Or I could approximate it as 66.44 square inches. Okay, number 5 says to calculate the circumference of the circle. Looking at my circle, it gives me the measurement of the line all the way across through the center. So that tells me that's my diameter. So pi times diameter. So my circumference is equal to 12.3 pi inches, or 38.622. So that would just round to 0.62 inches. That's approximate. Calculate the area of the circle. So now our line only goes halfway across. So that tells me it's giving me my radius. So pi times radius squared. So 4.4 squared would be 19.36. Pi square centimeters. Or estimate that to be 60.79 square centimeters. Okay. So now you're just finding area on the first 6 and circumference on the second 6. And it gives you either the radius or the diameter. So I know when I'm working with area, it's pi times the radius squared. And number 1 gives me my radius. So pi times 28 squared, which is 784. So 784 pi centimeters, which would be approximately, 2,461.76 square centimeters. Okay, on number 2, it gives me my diameter, so I need to divide that by 2 to get my radius. So that means my radius is 4 inches. So pi times 4 squared. 4 squared is 16. So 16 pi square inches. which is approximately 50.24 square inches. So this could also be written as 784 pi Number 3 gives me my diameter. So radius is 8 inches. So pi times 8 squared. 8 times 8 is 64. And then 64 times 3.14 would be 200.96 square inches, or 64 pi square inches. Number 4, my radius is 20 feet. So pi times 20 squared, which is 400 square feet, 400 pi square feet. So if you multiply that by 3.14, you get 1,256 square feet. Number 5, the diameter is 19 inches, so we need to divide that by 2, which will be 9.5 inches. So pi times 9.5 squared, which is 90.25, times pi square inches. Then when you multiply that, you get 283.39 square inches. Or 90.25 pi inches squared. So pi times 5.5 squared would be 30.25 pi square feet. Which is approximately 94.99 square feet. Okay, and then on 7 through 12, you're working with circumference. And we know that circumference is pi times the diameter. So number 7, it gives us the radius. So I know that the diameter is 34 centimeters. So I could write 34 pi centimeters. Or you can multiply it to get 100. Let me rewrite that. So it would be 106.76 centimeters. Okay, if our diameter is 2 inches, then we know it would be 2 times pi, which would be 6.28 inches, or 2 pi inches. If our radius is 24 inches, that means our diameter is 48 inches. So we have 48 times pi, which is 150.72 inches, or 48 pi inches. 10, our diameter is 18.5 meters. So 18.5 times pi, which is 58.09 meters, or 18.5 pi meters. If our radius is 4.2 centimeters, we have to multiply that by 2 to get our diameter. So our diameter is 8.4 centimeters. When you multiply with pi, so pi times the diameter would be 26 point approximately 38 centimeters, or 8.4 pi centimeters. And then if our radius is 0.75 inches, it means our diameter is 1.5 inches. So our circumference would be 1.5 times pi, which is 4.71 inches, or 1.5 pi inches. So remember, on area, your units need to be squared, whereas centimeters is just a distance, so you do not need squared units. Okay, it says calculate the area and circumference of a circle with a 9-inch diameter. So I know for area, I need to know my radius. So if my diameter is 9 inches, that tells me my radius is 4.5 inches. So pi times radius squared, so 4.5 squared is 20.25. So I could write 20.25 pi square inches. Or if I multiply it by pi, I get 63.56 square inches. For circumference, I already have my diameter, so it's just 9 pi inches, or 28.26 inches. Okay, so what if you're given the circumference but not the diameter or the radius? So as long as you're given the circumference, you can find both the diameter and the radius. So when you are given the circumference, you can just fill in your formula. So I know my circumference is 56.52 inches, and I know I have to multiply my diameter times pi to get that. In a problem like this, you want to use 3.14 as pi. So 56.52 is equal to 3.14 times the diameter. So now we have an equation with an unknown variable. So we just solve it like normal. So since 3.14 times d is 56.52, then I would just use the inverse of division, or inverse of multiplication, which is division. And I can divide both sides by 3.14. And that will tell me that my diameter is equal to 18 inches. So the diameter is 18 inches. Okay, on number 6, it gives me the circumference again. So my circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. And I know I want to use 3.14 for pi. So again, I just divide by 3.14. And that tells me that my diameter is 12 inches. But my question asked me what the radius is. Well, I know that the radius is the diameter divided by 2. So 12 divided by 2 tells me that my radius of that pizza would be 6 inches. So when you're given circumference, you just set your equation of pi times diameter is equal to circumference. So you would plug that circumference in for C, use 3.14 for pi, and then solve for D.